Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Native Echo Podcast, where we make English simple and enjoyable. I'm Harper. And I'm Julian. Hello to all of our wonderful listeners wherever you are in the world right now. Julian, something happened to me this week, and I need to tell you about it. Go ahead. Okay, so I was at a new cafe near my apartment. Very nice place. Big windows, plants everywhere, really cozy. And I sat down, I ordered my coffee, I took out my laptop because I had some work to do. And about 5 minutes later, the person working there came over very politely and said, "I'm sorry, we don't allow laptops during the weekend." And I just sat there looking at her like, "What? Wait, the whole cafe? No laptops at all?" No laptops, no working. On the weekend, it is a no work zone. And she said it so nicely that I could not even be upset about it. What did you do? I packed my laptop, ordered a second coffee, stared out the window for 40 minutes. And honestly, it was the best 40 minutes of my week. See, that is the power of a well placed rule. Sometimes you need someone else to tell you that you are not allowed to be stressed right now. Exactly. And this is actually what made me think of today's topic. Because that moment, we don't allow laptops, that is a prohibition. That is someone telling you that something is not permitted. And we do this all the time in English. But there are so many different ways to say it, and they all feel slightly different. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. How to express prohibition in English. Not just no and don't, but all the natural ways native speakers actually say it. And listeners, before we get into it, we want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you were told you were not allowed to do something and it actually turned out to be a good thing or a funny thing? Tell us in the comments. Even one sentence is great practice. Okay, Harper, let's start with the most basic one, because I think a lot of learners know don't and you can't, but they are not always sure when to use which one. Right, so let's start simple. The most direct way to express prohibition is you must not or you mustn't. This is the strongest one. It sounds very official, very serious. You see it on signs, in rules, in formal situations, like you must not enter this area without permission. Exactly. Or you must not take photos inside the museum. It is clear, it is firm, there is no room for discussion. It almost sounds like a law. That is because it often is. Must not is the language of rules that are already decided. Someone made this rule before you arrived, and it applies to everyone. So if someone says you mustn't do that, they are not asking for your opinion on the matter. No, they are simply informing you that this thing is not an option. And when you hear it, you understand immediately. This is serious. Now, what about you can't? Because I feel like I hear this one much more in normal conversation. Yes, you can't is more common in everyday speech. It is less formal than must not, but it still clearly means something is not allowed. The difference is in the tone. You mustn't sounds like a rule from a book. You can't sounds like someone talking to you directly, like a person, not a sign. Exactly. So your manager might say, "You can't share this information with clients." Your friend might say, "You can't just show up at someone's house without calling first." Both are prohibitions, but they feel very different. The first one is professional. The second one is almost like advice mixed with a little bit of judgment. Right. And you can't also sometimes means something is not possible, not just not allowed. So context really matters here. That is a good point. You can't fly without wings is about possibility. You can't use your phone in the exam is about permission. Yes. The situation tells you which one it is. Okay, what about you are not allowed to? I feel like this one sits somewhere in the middle. It does. You are not allowed to is a very clean, neutral way to say something is prohibited. Not too formal, not too casual. It works in most situations. Schools use it a lot, offices use it, parents use it with children. You are not allowed to run in the corridors. You are not allowed to bring outside food into the cinema. Yes, perfect examples. And notice something. Not allowed to always sounds like the rule comes from somewhere else. Like there is a system, a policy, a place that has decided this. The person telling you is just passing on the information. So they are not personally saying no. They are saying the place, the system, the rules are saying no. Exactly. That is why it often sounds polite, even when it is restricting you. The employee at the cafe who told me about the laptops, she probably said something like, "We don't allow laptops on the weekend," which is the same idea. "We don't allow" means it is the cafe's policy, not her personal decision. And that makes it much easier to hear. It really does. Now let's talk about a softer way to express prohibition. Because sometimes you want to say something is not okay, but you do not want to sound harsh or aggressive. Like when you are talking to a friend or giving advice. Exactly. And this is where "you are not supposed to" becomes really useful. Supposed to is about expectations and social rules. When you say you are not supposed to do something, you are saying this goes against what is expected, what is normal, what people agree on. Hmm. So it is less about a written rule and more about an unwritten rule? Yes. Like the rule exists, but maybe nobody wrote it down. Everyone just knows it. You are not supposed to talk loudly on the phone on public transport. Is that written anywhere? Not usually. But everyone feels it. Exactly. It is a social contract. And when someone breaks it, you do not say, "That is against the law." You say, "You are not supposed to do that." I love this one because it is also useful when you are not 100% sure about a rule. Like, you think this is probably not allowed, but you are not going to quote a regulation. Right. You can say, "I don't think you are supposed to park here," instead of "Parking is prohibited in this zone." Both mean the same thing, but one sounds like a normal person talking and one sounds like a parking sign. Okay, listeners, here's a question for you. Which one of these expressions do you hear most often in your life right now? "You must not," "You can't," "You are not allowed to," or "You are not supposed to"? Tell us in the comments. There is no wrong answer. It depends on your situation and where you are learning English. Now, Julian, I want to bring up one more. And this one is interesting because it sounds very gentle, but it is still a prohibition. Which one? "You had better not." As in, you had better not be late. Or, you had better not tell anyone about this. Oh, yes, this one sounds almost like a warning. It is a warning. Had better not is prohibition with a consequence attached. You are not just saying this is not allowed. You are saying if you do this, something bad will happen. Or at least it is strongly recommended that you do not do it. So the prohibition comes with a little bit of threat. A little bit. Or at least a very strong suggestion. Your parent might say, "You had better not forget to call me when you arrive." That is not a rule from an institution. That is love mixed with a very firm expectation. And everyone understands what it means. Everyone. And notice the grammar too. It is "had better not "have better not." Even when we are talking about right now or the future, we use "had." That is one of those things that just sounds wrong until you hear it enough times, and then it starts to sound right. That is how most of English works, honestly. Okay, let me tell you something. I was at a library last year, and there was a sign on the wall, and the sign said, "Strictly no food or drink permitted." And I stood there for a moment because I had a coffee in my hand. What did you do? I slowly put it back in my bag and pretended I had no idea it was ever there. So you hid the evidence? Completely. And the reason I remember that sign is because of the word strictly. Strictly no food or drink permitted. That word makes it feel even more serious than just no food or drink. Yes, strictly is a great modifier. It intensifies the prohibition. It means this is not a soft rule, this is a hard rule. There are no exceptions. Do not test this. Strictly prohibited, strictly forbidden. These are phrases you see on official documents, on signs, in contracts. Smoking is strictly prohibited in this building. The use of mobile phones is strictly forbidden during the performance. And you hear forbidden in formal and written English. It is not as common in spoken conversation, but it is good to recognize it. Right, if someone says it is forbidden to enter without a badge, you understand it is a serious rule, probably in a workplace or government building. Now, here is something interesting. Sometimes prohibition is expressed very indirectly, without using any of these words at all. Tell me more. Okay, so imagine you are at someone's house and you start to put your feet up on their coffee table. And they say, "Oh, we usually keep that clear." Or they say, "Actually, that table is a bit delicate." They are not saying you cannot do that, not at all. But the message is the same. Please do not put your feet on my table. This is what we call an indirect prohibition, and it is very common in polite British and American English. Instead of saying, "Don't do that," people hint at it. They give you information and trust you to understand. Exactly. And this is important for learners because if you only know you cannot do that, you might miss these softer signals in real conversations. Someone might be telling you no, and you might not even realize it. So, how do you recognize an indirect prohibition? A few ways. Watch for phrases like, "We usually do things this way," which implies your way is not welcome. Or, "That area is reserved for staff," which means you should not be there. Or even a simple, "I'm not sure that is a good idea," which in many cultures is a very polite way of saying, "Please stop." Context and tone carry a lot of the meaning. They really do. And this is something that comes with listening to a lot of English in real situations. You start to hear the space between the words. I like that, the space between the words. Now, let's bring in signs in public spaces, because prohibition in public is a whole category of English on its own. Oh, yes, you walk into almost any public space, and there are rules everywhere. Right, and they all use slightly different language. No smoking, no entry, do not disturb, keep off the grass, do not touch, photography not permitted. All of these are prohibitions, but notice they are all very short. No full sentences. No, you must not. Just the action and the no or do not. Because signs need to be fast. You read them in 2 seconds, so the language is compressed, direct, no extra words. And as an English learner, recognizing these signs is really practical. You go to a new place, you see a sign, you need to understand immediately. Let's do a quick one. Julian, I say a sign phrase and you tell me what it means in normal English. Ready? Ready. No authorized access. It means you are not allowed to enter this area unless you have permission or a pass. Good. Keep out. Very simple. Do not come in. This area is not for you. Do not lean against the glass. Stop putting your body weight on the glass, probably because it will break or it is fragile. Trespassers will be prosecuted. If you enter this property without permission, legal action can be taken against you. Excellent. That last one is very formal. You see it on fences around private land. And trespassers will be prosecuted sounds very serious, but in practice, it is often just a warning to keep people away. It does its job. It really does. Okay, I want to come back to everyday conversation, because I think this is where learners sometimes struggle. Because in real life, you are not reading signs. You are having actual conversations. And sometimes you need to tell someone that something is not allowed. And you want to sound natural, not like a robot reading a rule book. This is a real skill. And I think the key is matching your language to the relationship and the situation. Explain. Okay. If you are a teacher and a student is about to do something they shouldn't, you might say, "We don't do that in this class." That is gentle. It includes yourself. "We" makes it feel like a shared rule. If you are a friend and your friend is about to make a mistake, you might say, "You really shouldn't do that." Shouldn't is softer than must not. It suggests it is a bad idea rather than a hard rule. And if you are a manager and an employee is breaking company policy, you might say, "That is not something we can do here." Very professional. No blame. Just information. So the same prohibition can be delivered in completely different ways, depending on who you are and who you are talking to. And getting that right is what makes you sound truly fluent. Not just knowing the grammar, but knowing which version fits the moment. I remember when I first started learning English seriously, I would use you must not for everything. I thought it was the correct formal way. And how did people react? They looked at me like I was reading from a legal document. One time I told a friend, "You must not leave the party so early." And she gave me a very strange look. Because you must not sounds like a law, not like a friend who wants you to stay. Exactly. I should have said, "Oh, come on, you can't leave already." Or, "Don't go yet." Much more natural. Same meaning, completely different feeling. And that is the real lesson here. Prohibition is not just about the rule, it is about the relationship. Okay, let me give listeners some more natural expressions they can use in real situations. Because we have talked about the big ones, but there are smaller phrases too. Yes, let's do it. That is off limits. Off limits means this topic, this place, this thing is not available to you. It is not allowed. That area is off limits to the public. Or in a personal conversation, that topic is off limits. I don't want to discuss it. I like off limits. It sounds very natural, and it works for places, things, and topics. And here is one more. That is a no-go. A no-go means this is definitely not acceptable. This will not happen. Staying up past midnight is a no-go when you have an early flight. Or working on Sunday? That's a no-go for me. No-go is very casual, but very clear. And it is great for situations where you want to say no firmly, but not rudely. Now, listeners, let's do a quick review because we have covered a lot of ground today, and we want to make sure these phrases actually stick. Yes. Let's go through them. And as always, try to think of a real situation in your life where you could use each one. First, you must not, or you mustn't. This is the strongest and most formal prohibition. You see it in rules, laws, and official signs. You must not park here between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. You cannot, or you can't. More conversational, used in everyday speech. Clear and direct, but less stiff than must not. You can't use a dictionary during the test. You are not allowed to. Neutral and polite. Suggests the rule comes from a system or institution. You are not allowed to bring your own food into the venue. You are not supposed to. This one is about social and unwritten rules. The expectation exists even if nobody wrote it down. You are not supposed to talk during the film. You had better not. A prohibition with a warning implies a consequence. You had better not forget to save your work before you close the laptop. Strictly prohibited or strictly forbidden. Used in formal writing and on official signs. The use of recording devices is strictly prohibited. Off limits. Casual and natural. Works for places, topics, and things. That part of the building is off limits. And a no-go. Very informal. Great for personal conversations. Going out tonight is a no-go. I'm completely exhausted. 8 expressions, all for the same basic idea. Something is not allowed. But each one fits a different situation, a different relationship, a different level of seriousness. And now you have all of them. So this week, every time you see a sign, every time someone tells you that something is not allowed, listen for which expression they use and notice why they chose that one. Because language is always a choice, and every choice tells you something. Before we go, one last thing. Julian, if you could make one rule for the world, one prohibition that everyone had to follow, what would it be? Oh, okay. I think mine would be you are not allowed to have a conversation on speakerphone in a quiet public place. No exceptions. I would vote for that law. What about you? Mine is it is strictly prohibited to send a message that just says, "Can we talk?" with no other information. You have to include what it is about, because that message alone causes so much unnecessary panic. That should be an actual law. It really should. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Native Echo Podcast and give us a like. It really helps us reach more learners like you. And write in the comments, what is one rule from your life, your school, your work, your country that you think everyone should know about in English? Use one of today's expressions to tell us. We read every single comment, and we love seeing you practice. Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember, English is not about being perfect. It is about being understood. See you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye, everyone. Goodbye.